Hello and welcome once again. Today's lesson is the fabulous Measure 2 Masdar. As you can see, this is a very important and special lesson. So let's get right to it. Hopefully you know all about Measure 2 from the previous lesson. It's fresh in your mind, and we're going to continue on to this most important of forms. Here's our goal today. As we say, this pattern is one of the most distinctive patterns, and it's also one of the most important ones you're going to learn. Now, what do we mean by this? Well, as we've been saying all along, most of these measures, most of these patterns involve just minor changes, a slight tweak from here to there, and they're all very similar. We're going to see one today. This is one of two that we're going to see throughout the course that has a very distinct pattern. It really looks like nothing else, so you just have to memorize it. But it's also one that is very commonly used and very important. I know by the time we're done, you will be sold. Trust me. Okay, so as always, let's review. We never throw you into these things unprepared. So let's review the terms we'll need. Now, as you remember from the previous unit, a Masdar is what? Yes, if you can read your screen, you can see a Masdar is a verbal noun. What do we mean by that? It's a noun. Notice that. Right? It is a noun, and it is the doing of something. Now, this gets confusing in English. It's not confusing in Arabic, but it is confusing in English. So let's look at some examples. All right? You see these sentences here, they all have examples of the Masdar in them. Okay? For example, I like swimming. Dancing is a popular form of exercise. I studied cooking in culinary school. Where are the Masdars? Well, you can see them. They're all underlined. Now, if you notice, these are all nouns, right? I like swimming. I like dogs. I like trees, right? It's a noun, but it is telling us about the doing of an action. So here we have, in this case, three nouns that all refer to the doing of some action. But the great thing about them is, if you look, the easy way to tell is they can all be replaced by other nouns. If you can just replace a common noun in the place of those words, and the sentence makes at least grammatical sense, then you know you're dealing with a Masdar. So, I like swimming can become I like pizza, I like cars, I like chess, whatever. Okay, so that is clearly a noun. Dancing is a popular form of exercise. Yoga is a popular form of exercise. Pilates, whatever. So you can put a noun in there. So you can see in all these cases you can replace them with a noun. Why do we say this? Because in English this is not that clear. Typically Masdars end with ing. The problem is in English we use this form of the word for more than one thing. We use it for a Masdar, we also use it for other things. So you can say, I like swimming, which is a noun, but you can also say, he is swimming. In that case, that's not a noun. Just think of it. You can't replace he is swimming with he is pizza, or he is yoga. Right? You can't do that. If we ask you, where is Ahmed? You say, Ahmed is sleeping. Well, you can't replace Ahmed is pizza. So it's confusing in English, it is not confusing in Arabic. So that's what the Masdar is. Make sure you know that because we're going to learn about the Masdar. Now, if you remember back to that lesson, which I'm sure has left you with very happy memories, you remember we told you in Measure 1, the Masdar has no specific pattern. Remember Hans Wehr had to put it in parentheses. You had to just look for it. The great thing is, for all the other measures, 2 through 10, they do have very specific patterns. And this is one we're going to see is the most distinct. Okay, so That's what the Masdar is. What was measure 2? Now you should remember this. It was like yesterday. Okay, measure 2, of course, was the causative. And it is formed, if you remember, by placing a shadda over the middle letter. Okay, now that's not going to be that important today, but just remember that's what it is. Let's review some examples. Remember, darasa, right, is to study. That's, of course, measure 1. Darasa with that shadda is to teach, to cause someone to study. That's measure 2. Okay, that's measure 2. Alright, so now let's put these together. We're talking about the measure 2 Masdar, so we're talking about the what? The doing of a measure 2 verb. So, if darasa is to teach, then we're looking for the doing of that, i.e. teaching. What is teaching? Well, you can see that this is the measure 2 Masdar. We just have to learn how to form it. So you're saying, let's do it. Let's go ahead. I agree. Let us go. Okay, so here, as we said, this is just a distinct form. It really isn't going to build on anything else you've seen before, so just memorize it. You're going to get plenty of opportunities to practice it. You're going to get plenty of opportunities to practice this as we go along. Okay, so here is the pattern. Taf'il. Now notice, here is our root, fa'ala. What have we done? We've put a ta in front. If you remember way back to that lesson about the roots, we told you that ta is one of the things that is very often stuck on the front of roots, just like meme. Well, this is one example of where ta is stuck on the front of the roots. Okay, so tafa'il. Notice ta. We have this first root letter with nothing on it, and then an E, a long vowel E. Now it's always going to be this. So we just plug into this pattern. This is the measure 2 Masdar. But you notice it doesn't look much like measure 2. There's no shadda in here or anything else. It doesn't look like it. Just learn it. My goodness, you learned a lot of crazy formulas in chemistry and physics. You can learn this one. Okay. All right. See that? There's our add-ons. Here is our root. Okay. So, if darasa is to teach, teaching is, by definition, tedris. Tedris. Notice, right, the rhythms are always important. Right? So, Arabic is what kind of language? Yes, that's right, I heard you. It's poetic. And so the rhythm is very important. Notice you always have this shadda, so we get 2 syllables. Syllable 1, ted. Syllable 2, ris. Tedris. Tashkil. Tajmil. Tafil, tashkil. All right, always going to have that rhythm. That is always going to be the rhythm. Okay, so don't call this tadaris or something else. But you can look at it. You recognize the add-ons here. You know this is the measure 2 Masdar. So this is teaching. All right, let's take another example, because you know one example is never enough. Okay, the verb arafa. Measure 1 is to know. Arafa, shadda here, is to inform, i.e. to make known, to cause someone to know something. No problem. So now we want the Masdar, informing. Again, plug it into this pattern. Ta on the front, E here. Ta'rif. Notice it's going to give you 2 syllables. Ta'rif. Ta'rif. Okay, say it. Alright, now let's work backwards. We know y'all love working backwards. Here is a word, tajmil. First of all, you will know how to pronounce this. You know it's tajmil and not tejamil. You know that because you learned this pattern, always the 2 syllables. Tajmil, tashkil, tafil, tajdid. Huh? Okay. Now, you can look at this. You recognize this is obviously, by looking at the pattern, you can recognize that this is clearly a measure 2 Masdar. You know that. So we just want to know the root. Well, obviously, the root is what? Exactly. Jim, meme, lam. Now, as we always say, just think of any word. What's one word that you know from this root? You probably only know one word from this root. All right? Okay. All right. So, think here, right? Jamala, Jamil. Jamil is beautiful. This is the measure 2 Masdar, the act of making something whatever measure 1 is. So this is beautification. But notice it's a nice simple pattern in Arabic, like ification. We don't have anything like that. Tajmil. If we ask you what is the verb is jammala. Tajmil is the act of doing this. Right? Fabulous. You're good. All right. Here's another one. Okay. This one you don't even need to think about it. Okay. Look at that. What's the root? Exactly. What word comes from that root? Right. So what is this? Exactly. In this case, we would call it enlargement, exaggeration, but it means making something big. Okay, you recognize the root, kabir, kabir, to be big, takbir, making big, enlargement, exaggeration, embellishment, it means all those things. But notice how in Arabic it's a very simple pattern. Takbir, you can look at it, you can see the root, you know the root has to mean big, you can recognize the pattern, it's a measure 2 Masdar, it means making something that, and you instantly know it. Look at these words in English. Enlargement, exaggeration. How on earth do you get those from big? Right? You can see large in here, but it's a very different pattern than beautification. So again, the English is not very consistent. The Arabic is very consistent. And kabara, of course, would be the verbal noun. Would be the verb for this noun. Okay. All right, that's takbir. All right, now we want to work the other way. All right, we want this word. We want to know shrinking, reduction. Now, you should be able to give us this instantly. Okay? Think about it. Think. Okay, what is it? Well, first of all, we know it has to deal with small. So the base verb is, or the base root is Saghir. Saghir is small. The root, Sad, Rain, Ra, has to do with being small. Okay? That would be the measure 1 verb, to be small, by necessity. If this is small, this means to be small. Now this verb is not used much at all. This one is used more often. Right? With a shedda is to make small. So therefore, the making small is this. And how will we pronounce it? Tazghir. Because we know from the pattern that is a sukoon right there. Tazghir. Tazghir, making small, which in English we call that shrinking or reduction. Notice, shrinking. Does shrinking look like small? Does reduction look like small? No, not at all. But in Arabic, you can just look at tazghir, you know what that means. Isn't this fabulous? Aren't you glad? You're glad you're watching this. My goodness, your life just got so much easier. Okay, let's move on. All right. Now we're going to skip all the intermediate steps. You don't need them. We want to know, what's this word mean? Just look at it. Take a look. What's it mean? Right. Okay. Has to mean that. Why? Because the base root, jadid, is new. Tajdeed, making new. Again, in English we have a strange word, renewal. We don't call it making new. But that's what it means, tajdeed. Okay. How about this one? Again, we want it quick. Quick, just give it to us. We want to know, what is this? You don't even need to go through the intermediate steps. Exactly. Why? Because what is the base? Right? This is the root. Tawala. Tawil. Tawil is long. Tatwil is making long. Now you notice how this looks very similar to the adjective except with the ta. Now that will be the case for these words where the adjective is familiar. Alright? Alright. Well, That's really all there is to it. There's not much more theory to go on with this. You just need practice. But again, this is one of those forms you just need to memorize it. You need to instantly be able to recognize it and just plug in your roots and you're good to go. So that is all we have to say about the measure 2 Masdar. But remember this again, what we said at the beginning, it's one of the most common and important patterns, particularly in the news media. And why is that? If you think about what's reported in the news, particularly when you're talking about political news, government news, what is government at least supposed to be doing? Right? Making things happen. What is this pattern? It's the making of something happen, the causing of something to happen. So this pattern appears a lot in the news media. And also, as we said earlier, the Arab preference for using Masdars over verbs whenever they can. So this one you will see a lot. Trust me, it's easy to recognize it. So just go with it. All right, on behalf of my good friend Samson, we wish you all the best. Ma salama.